Hello, welcome to Old Virginia Homes. Civil War has often been referred to as a war of brother against brother. And in the case of the man whose home we'll be visiting today, the American Civil War became a war of sister against brother, brother against sister. Thomas Jonathan Jackson and his sister, Laura Jackson Arnold, had always had a close bond. But as Civil War loomed, Laura became a staunch Unionist, and Thomas Stonewall Jackson, as you know, became a prominent Confederate general. It was reported that upon hearing of Stonewall Jackson's death, Laura was saddened, but also said that she would rather know that he was dead than to have him a leader in the rebel army. Today, we're going to explore a time in Jackson's life before the Civil War, before war changed everything. A time when Jackson was a professor, a church and community leader, and a husband. Join me as we visit the Jackson House Museum, an old Virginia home in Lexington. Let's go. From 1859 to 1861, this two-story, four-bay dwelling with a full English basement in Lexington was home to Thomas Jackson and his wife, Mary Anna Morrison Jackson. Jackson didn't build the house. It had been built for Cornelius Dorman in 1801. Later, the facade was altered and a stone addition erected off the back by another owner, Dr. Archibald Graham, who had changed the house to accommodate his medical practice. You can see the alterations here in the shifted window and door openings. In the early 20th century, the house was purchased by the local chapter of the United Daughters of the Confederacy for use as a hospital. In the mid-20th century, the house became a museum, and in 1979, it was restored to the period it was when the Jacksons had made it their home. The beautifully restored middle-class home was the only home Jackson ever owned, and is where he lived some of the most formative and peaceful years of his life. It was here that Jackson lived with his second wife, Mary Anna. His first wife, Eleanor, had died after giving birth to a stillborn son. The parlor gives us insight into the couple's personal interests and character traits. Mary Anna, who was known as Anna, was quite musically inclined. And as for Thomas, well, the chair that is positioned facing toward the wall illustrates his self-discipline. While living in this house, Thomas was a professor of natural and experimental philosophy, which would be akin to today's physics, at the nearby Virginia Military Institute. In order to be on top of his game in the classroom, he would study and memorize the lessons, apparently facing the wall to avoid distraction. Thomas had struggled when he was a student at West Point due to previously inadequate education, but ended up graduating 17th out of 59 students in his class. He was a taskmaster as a professor, but applied the same standards to himself as an extreme self-disciplinarian. Jackson's study was his sanctuary, a place where he graded papers, prepared Sunday school lessons, and studied military texts long before the Civil War. Jackson was a devout Christian and lifelong student of strategy. Interestingly, he is also said to have taught enslaved and free Black residents to read, a volunteer effort coordinated through the Lexington Presbyterian Church. In the dining room, Jackson's meals and morning prayers followed a strict schedule, as punctuality was a hallmark of his personality. The Jacksons also often hosted VMI cadets and friends here. The Jacksons' bedroom is where Anna and Thomas shared their hopes for the future, and where Anna recovered after the birth of their stillborn child. Their second daughter, Julia Laura, was born on November 23, 1862. Sadly, Jackson would never see his daughter grow up, as he died 8 days after being shot during the Battle of Chancellorsville in 1863, when Julia Laura was just 6 months old. The basement of the home during Jackson's time housed household help. Some of the names that we know who lived and worked here include enslaved African Americans Amy, Hetty, George, Cyrus, and Emma. The kitchen shows the hearth, utensils, and food preparation tools that would have been utilized in the mid-19th century. A kitchen garden in the back would have supplied freshly picked vegetables. Visiting the Jackson House Museum gives deeper insight into the complexity of this man, the context of time, and the far-reaching impact of a civil war. If you do visit, it's also worth heading over to VMI, the Virginia Military Institute, which is a public senior military college in Lexington. It's sometimes referred to as the West Point of the South. Founded in 1839 as America's first state-sponsored and supported military college, VMI's architectural complex is fascinating. Between 1848 and 1861, renowned architect Alexander Jackson Davis commissioned 6 castellated Gothic-style buildings, forming one of the nation's first Gothic Revival campus complexes. The barracks is a fortress-like structure with towers and crenellated parapets. The chapel and the museum are also impressive. And the museum has a large display devoted to Jackson as part of a 20,000 artifact collection focusing on the heritage of VMI. Thank you for visiting the Jackson House Museum with me, an old Virginia home in Lexington.